Well, President Trump is like a bull in a china shop, just running wild through Washington, D.C., and his voters seem to be very happy with what he's doing. To help me go through some of the biggest stories in the news, I have Stacy Washington. Stacy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Stephen. Good to be here.
Oh, thank you. So just some background. Stacy hosts the Stacy on the Right show. You can find her on XM Radio as well as Salem TV. I'll put a direct link down below. Okay, so Trump's getting some pushback for this. And I want to know your thoughts on him closing or decreasing the Department of Education. Kids have gotten further and further behind in math and reading. There's some areas of the country where 90% of kids can't read or do basic math. Yep. I want to know, how do you see this? Did this start off with good intentions and then it turned into a Democrat money laundering machine and a vote buying machine? Or what are your thoughts on the Department of Education going away?
Well, so first of all, it's actually a relatively recent one, since, we're talking about a lot of our agencies date back to the 1800s. This one was actually late 1900s, 1979, I believe, was when they had the idea we need a Department of Education. The original idea was, you have a child who lives in, let's say they live in Mississippi and they move to New York. Well, they're put back a year. And this happened a lot. A lot of children, I even have relatives who moved across the country from New Orleans, Louisiana to Alaska and were put back a year. So they wanted to make all of the standards the same so that children could move across the country and remain in their grade, because it's humiliating to lose a grade. And that was the original impetus for it. Standardization to make sure that all kids were getting a quality education. What's happened since then is our educational value, what children are getting, where they are proficient or advanced in the core subjects, the number of children, percentage of them who are achieving that has reduced every single year since the Department of Education has been funded. And they have begun to attach strings to every bit of money that they send back to the states, to school districts. And school districts are full of parents who fund the schools at the local level and also fund them through the federal Department of Education. So you have all these strings, like in the Obama years, the strings where you have to put boys into women's sports, you have to put boys in girls' bathrooms, you have to have certain teachings in your school, especially in rural areas and parts of America we call the Bible Belt. These things were frowned upon. Even the changes to the lunch, where they took away the famous school pizza that I can still remember the taste of that pizza, Stephen. I love it. They took that away and replaced it with salad, and people got really ticked off. So the idea that President Trump can end an agency that's not achieving its charter is new, but it's not new in the private sector. In the private sector, if you stand up a program and it doesn't work, in most companies in 90 days, they've ended that program, right? They don't take 20, 30 years. They don't take 50 years. They take 90 days or so. Most companies will give at most a year to anything that they're trying to see if it works before they abandon that, because they're spending money on it and they're being judged. Private companies judged by profitability, public companies judged by shareholder value. And, these are very important things. Accountability. President Trump is seeking to put that back in. I've interviewed a few people about this. I've asked, some people who really all they do is education. We're not going to see a huge change in what happens in your child's classroom on a day-to-day basis with the elimination of the federal Department of Education. But what we will see is more power returned to parents through their local school board and your state board of education, which are the most important factors. And I always say we have 3 kids who are young adults. And getting them through K through 12, it was kind of my full-time thing. I was a stay-at-home mom. And I really feel like in America, what we do is we work really hard. Sometimes moms work before they take on the child rearing. And we want to get into a AAA rated school district. Well, getting your child into a great school district is just a part of the equation. How many words you speak and read to them before they're 3, before they're 5, whether or not they can read and actually recognize numbers as a kindergartner, whether they can follow a multi-part instruction, and whether you actually have a relationship with your child where they would tell you if they're being bullied, if they're being harmed, if there's an adult in their life that they're afraid of. These are almost more important than the school district you put them in. So my recommendation to people is you love your kids as hard as you can. And if you're thinking, why did she say, instead of saying love them a lot or love them as hard as you can? Because I'm saying you're going to have to go above and beyond what you think is possible in order to actually have the relationship you need with a child to make them come straight to you if there's a problem. But if you sacrifice, it might be that you never get to go on a girls' weekend. I've never done a girls' weekend. I've never been out of town with my girlfriends, only my husband. And we didn't do that a lot without the kids. There's some things I just would not do until my kids were out of the house. And that is because I felt like it would be more important for me to maximize my 18 summers. And that's all you have. You have 18 summers with your child. And if you think about the number 18 and how small it is, how minuscule an amount of time that is to spend with someone that you're going to know for your entire life that you're alive on this planet, but you only get 18 summers where you're in control, it kind of reorients your prioritization. And so we shouldn't be looking at these agencies as if they're anything that will do good for us. We have to do it right here in our houses. That's where it starts and ends with education. And I think you'll have an amazing outcome. You'll have a person that's your friend when they leave your house, and they will not have regrets, nor will you, about the educational outcome that they're able to achieve. You have to put it into perspective as a priority. If you're going to make children, if you're going to make people, then other things are going to fall to the wayside, but you'll never regret it. That's the good news. You won't regret prioritizing your kids and their education over pretty much everything else that you're doing besides your marriage.
Okay. Wow. That was a great analysis. I especially liked where you compared it to a corporation. Like, do you think Apple would go 30 years of losing money in a row? Google 30 years. I mean, even Disney, as much as I love Disney, after 15 flops at the box office, they said, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't be cramming LGBTQ down people's throat. Let's go back to movies that are family oriented. And they got the picture. But the Department of Education, the more money they put in, the worse it seemed to get for the students. So I, for one, am grateful and excited to see what the outcome is of that move. Elon Musk has, in an interview in the Oval Office with President Trump, he floated the idea of investigating members of Congress who have become fabulously wealthy while receiving their government salary. Do you think if we actually dig in that we're going to find kickbacks, insider trading, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours arrangements?
Yeah, I do. And I would hate to see the Nancy Pelosi stock picker go away because I follow that. But the fact is, there's just the math doesn't math. You like plenty of people in the private sector make $176,000 a year, whatever they make. Nancy Pelosi gets a little stipend because she was speaker. When she was speaker, she got an extra boost of about 20,000 or so. So let's say 210, right? Let's say 200. Let's make it even. I don't know anybody, and we know a lot of people, and we live in the suburbs in the kind of suburban two-family household region of St. Louis. We know a lot of people who make 200 and more, and they don't have net worths of $60 million. I'm talking about really smart people. Like I'm not talking about losers here. I'm talking about people who are intelligent, diligent, hardworking. They're successful, and they do not have those kinds of net worths. So obviously, the insider trading is a huge boost. But USAID is proving to us that we literally get taxed for the first quarter of the year, and that money goes to a huge chunk of it goes to USAID, and USAID is like a clearinghouse. Either your mom works there, like Barack Obama, or your daughter works there, like Dick Cheney. His daughter, Liz Cheney, worked at USAID. So everybody runs through USAID and learns how the grift works. And then they come out and they grift and they become multimillionaires. I've never really been concerned with people's net worth, but Stephen, these are government people. They're public servants. If we don't find out how they're doing that, they'll just keep doing it. And it's also the reason why they don't work for us. They don't do anything for us because they don't see us as their employers. So public servants are actually our employees. And that's another thing, going back to education and every other conversation we'll have, you have to kind of stop yourself and orient yourself to the relationship you're in. In this particular instance, Nancy Pelosi, she's not my direct employee because I don't live in California, but Ann Wagner is. I live in Mo too. We have Schmidt and Hawley. Those are our senators. Those are my employees. I should never ever be in a position where I send an email or post something on Facebook where I don't get a response back. These are all Republicans in my case, but Nancy is a Democrat in that case. They don't have a lot of accountability to us because we treat them like rock stars and overlords instead of public servants, and that has to change.
Yeah. Insider tip: Ron Wyden actually outperforms Nancy Pelosi. So just a little insider tip.
I'll look on my little. It follows. It's a congressional stock picker, and I usually only look at Nancy because she has a 97% return over the life of her portfolio, but last year's return was 55%. So just 55%. If he's beating her, I'll look.
Yeah. He, I think he was over 100%. And it's weird. He doesn't get much done for the people in his district, but he keeps getting triple-digit year-over-year return making Warren Buffett look like an absolute imbecile.
Yeah.
So just in the last couple of days, Musk and the DOGE team put out that there is $2.7 trillion with a capital T waste in the Medicare program over the last couple decades. As they look behind the curtain, do you think we're going to actually find out that many people have been defrauding the government for years? Is this corporations? Is this individuals? Because I know just yesterday, President Trump said, once I have names, I will actually publicly name these people so you know who's been stealing.
Yeah, I love that. He's had that energy since he went to visit the people in North Carolina, and someone had said very in a soft voice that they weren't able to get an insurance claim paid. And he said, who was that? Name the company that refused to pay you after this disaster. So he's a different man. And he's the man we all know and love in our friend groups. Every one of us has someone similar to Trump in our friend groups, a person who's successful, shoots from the hip, and likes accountability. That's President Trump. I think people are making a whole lot of much out of it, that he's maybe somehow different than the rest of us. He's not. He's actually very much like us, which is why he's so odd in Washington, because the rest of the people there are not like us. They're not regular. They don't believe in accountability. I think the number one defining thing about the Trump presidency that we're looking at right now, so far in 2025, and we're only a few weeks in, is that he's actually bringing something that we screamed about during the Tea Party years. We've talked about it incessantly on television and radio, and that is, if I had the same performance as any one of these elected officials, I would have been fired within weeks. But let's go further. If I was working at a company, let's say a bank, and because the U.S. Treasury is a literal bank, and all of a sudden, after a few years of working there, I come in, my net worth is 300,000. A few years in, my net worth is 65 million. There'd be an investigation. They would want to know where that money came from, because I work for a fiduciary, institution. That is what is about to happen. And once it happens, once people are brought up on charges, once there's criminal activity associated with this, it will stop. But not until then. They will not stop because we have rallies or we yell and scream about it. We have viral videos. They will only stop if the law enforcement is brought to bear upon their activities. If they've broken the law, they should be brought to heel. They certainly didn't have a problem criminalizing the pro-lifers in front of the clinics who were praying. They've never had a problem with criminalizing parents who go to school board meetings and can complain about their nonsense in schools. They love to criminalize people. So it's time to have the actual law, our beautiful, big, never before used anywhere else, Anglo-Saxon system of jurisprudence needs to come down on them like a ton of bricks, just like it would you or me if we were doing the same thing. Yeah,
it absolutely would. Democrats are making this big deal that, there's a little bit of waste, but Elon Musk, he's inventing these big numbers in order to look good on TV. But the Government Office of Accountability admitted, they publicly published that the government wastes upwards of $521 billion annually. This isn't Trump. This isn't Elon. This isn't Vivek Ramaswamy. This is the unelected government office that tracks money and spending. They're telling us up to $521 billion misspent every single year. And yet Democrats say our only answer to America's problems is more government, followed up by more taxes. This is just such backwards thinking in my mind. Are you like me, hitting the gym, tracking every food you eat, and still wondering, why can't I lose weight? Well, let me introduce you to my secret weapon, Lumen, the world's first handheld metabolic coach. Now, I know what you're thinking, another gadget, but trust me, this is different, right? It's like having a personal nutritionist that fits in your pocket. Now, every morning you can breathe into Lumen and boom, it will spit out data about yourself based off of your breath. Are you burning fat? Are you burning carbs? What's going on with your metabolic state? No more guessing. Lumen gives a tailored guidance to tweak your diet, sleep, stress, to help you with your unique health journey. It's not just about losing fat. It's about understanding your body's metabolic flexibility and hitting your fitness goals. Now, before my workout, I check in with Lumen. If it's a low carb day, I'm ready to go. If not, it tells me to carb up. for an extra boost. It's like having a coach that whispers in your ear, do this, do that. And it just ends up making your life a lot easier. Now, Lumen has a special offer for my community only. And what I want you guys to do is you can go to lumen.me/Gardner and learn more about that. If you're ready to up your game and get personalized help to become fitter, healthier, hit your goals, again, lumen.me/Gardner. You'll get 20% off your Lumen. Go check it out right now. It really is an amazing thing.
It's backwards, but it's also an indicator of who's in on the deal, right? If you have something going on, if there's a grift and the people who are investigating it are getting pushback, the ones doing the pushback are the ones who are in on it. And I think the biggest one we've seen so far, we're going to find that more than half of what went to Ukraine was kicked back to different individuals who were in on that scheme. Ukraine that's the one that I think out of all of them, besides, I think 30 trillion we spent in Iraq and Afghanistan, the ones that are actually connected to the death of people, right? You have a hollowing out of the whole population of men in Ukraine. They've lost them all. They only have about 70 some odd days left before they have no army left because of the Russian killing machine. And also the mothers, upset mothers in Russia who literally didn't want the war to happen because they know it's for nothing. And they lost their sons and their husbands. We've had over 1 million casualties of innocent people in the Middle East, and I'm not against I'm not against war. I mean, war can be just, it can be proper, but there's a way that we're supposed to do it. It's supposed to be just, and it's not supposed to be a grifting machine like what we've seen. I will say, Stephen, so there's a whole thing going on where everyone's saying it's just this amount of money, it's just that amount of money. I know someone who's actually pretty wealthy. And one time we were having lunch and I was saying something about, I'm not going to do anything with that. And it was only a couple of dollars. So I guess I'll just have to take the hit. And she said, money stacks up. And I was like, what do you mean? She said, money stacks up. If you just waste $2 here and you waste $3 there, before the end of the year, you'll have wasted $100 or $200. And that money could have been in your investment account, drawing interest or growing for you for free. And so she said, don't think of it that way. Try to save money wherever you can. $1 here, $10 there, you're going to end up with an enormous amount of money over the course of your life. She said, money stacks up. Never forget that. Money stacks up. If you put pennies on top of each other, you eventually get $1. You eventually get hundreds of dollars. The same thing with $3 or $4. So when you hear them say 30 million or 40 million or 30 billion, 40 billion, which the USAID budget, I think, was 48 billion. For comparison, the entire Marine Corps budget is 59 billion. Let's get, I mean, if I can have a whole Marine Corps for myself to command and control, I'd rather get rid of USAID and build another US Marine Corps. But we don't really need another US Marine Corps. We need 30 or 40 war vessels. We need to rebuild our Navy. So let's do that. I mean, we need the common sense of Elon Musk, who thinks that's the way he thinks because he runs companies. He builds rockets that go up into space and then they come back down and they're caught on things called chopsticks. He builds and builds and builds and goes through failure after failure after failure. I've always respected his intellect. I'm not a green energy person. I don't like the cars, but I watched a video about him it's a compilation video of him watching the rockets come down. And you can tell it's over years because he looks younger in the beginning of the video. And he's crying in public in front of his employees when the rockets come down and slam. Instead of landing on their base, they slam on their side and crumple up like aluminum foil. And it shows it again and again and again and again. And then one day, and this is recent, this happened last year, the rocket comes down and it comes down and it lands on its own. It shows that 2 times. Then it shows the rocket coming down. It's a much bigger one and being caught by those chopsticks, as he calls them. And he's still crying. And he goes into the press conference afterward to talk about what he's done with tears on his face. This is a man who knows failure. This is a man who knows systems. He knows people. He knows every aspect of business. And he's willing to sleep at the Office of Management and Budget, which is admittedly low class compared to what he could buy. And he's sleeping there with his tech bros trying to fix our country. He's an immigrant, by the way, just got his citizenship in 2002. And he also holds a top secret security clearance. I'm only sharing that because, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. People keep saying that he doesn't have authorization. The man has been vetted by the FBI. Top secret is a pretty hard clearance to get. And he's had it for years. He's had it since, I think, the Obama years. And so, this is nonsense. This man and President Trump are trying to fix our country, and they're the best qualified individuals to do it because they don't have anything to gain from it. If you're the richest man on the planet, fixing America only benefits you if it enables you to continue to do what you've been doing and leave a legacy for your, 12 kids. So, that's the benefit he gets out of it. So I'm excited about what they're doing. We've been waiting for this. We've been praying and begging, would someone please fix our government? And now they're doing it. And all the people who are yelling about it are annoying me, Stephen. They're like, it's a bit much.
Yeah. Oh man. The richest man in the world is sleeping in his office in Washington, D.C. so that he can fix the government. I mean, when you really sit and think about that, like most billionaires, that they could just be on the beach sipping pina coladas. Mm-hmm. He's single. He could literally be around beautiful women. He could be the Amalfi Coast in Italy, off the coast. I mean, what is he doing? He's with a bunch of young people that committed to working 100 hours a week. Yeah, he's sleeping at the office and fixing the government. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like a made up story, and yet it's true.
Isn't it like the movies Hollywood used to make? That's my thing. So me and my family were big entertainment buffs. We used to go to the movies all the time. We've seen all the Marvel stuff. We play video games. We're entertainment people. I mean, we're readers and all of that, but our fun is, getting to go and watch entertainment. And I tell you what, Stephen, this is a made for TV miniseries, if there ever was one. Go back to the 80s when they used to do those, and you'd be sitting in your living room crying with your parents over, the Thornbirds. This is that, only it's in real life, which is why it's so exciting. But I have to tell you, Stephen, I'm here for all of the excitement, but I keep thinking the same thing. In fact, this was when President Trump lost in 2020. I'm driving down the street with our oldest daughter, and we're going to buy some stuff because she was, I think, switching from one living situation at college, moving dorms or something. And she says, "Mom, why is President Trump running again?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "He's rich, right? He's still worth billions of dollars." I said, "Yeah, he lost a little bit, but he's still worth billions." She said, "Well, he's married to that woman who looks like a living Barbie, and he's got all those kids, and he's got grandkids, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "What are you saying?" She said, I wouldn't run again if I lost, if people treated me the way they treat him." And that was before he'd had his house raided, been sued, been criminalized, all that stuff. She was like, it makes me wonder why he's doing it. I said, he's doing it because he's a man on a mission and he loves this country. And this is a calling for him. When you have a calling on you, no matter what you do, you have to do it. You can't get away from it. You can't sleep, you can't eat, you can't live unless you do the thing that you're being called to. You're stuck. And that's the thing with him. The other part about it is, we don't have billions of dollars. I don't know about you, Stephen, you might have billion, but I don't have billions. But I still like to rest. I like working, and then I like to rest. I like to live like a regular person. And President Trump likes sleeping very little. He doesn't drink alcohol. He likes eating taco salads and McDonald's. He likes flying around on jets, doing rallies. He likes spending 4 years planning his return to government so that he can have a splash like no one's ever seen before. He likes hanging out with people like Elon Musk. What I find fascinating about it is that more people aren't stopping for a second to take stock of what's actually happening in our country with these two guys. Like at the press conference they had yesterday, Elon Musk is there with his toddler. President Trump's behind the Resolute desk, and he's kind of, he's relaxed. And he's talking to Elon Musk, and they're kind of like having, I call it bro moments, because they remind me of when my husband's with like guys that his friends, when they talk to each other, it's different than when they talk to women. So they're talking, and he's like, "Well, Elon, why don't you go ahead and explain it?" So they've discussed all this. These guys have been plotting at Mar-a-Lago for a year almost on how to get this stuff done. And everyone's like, "Well, President Trump's not in charge." I think these people are morons. They're nincompoops because they don't really get what we're watching. Whenever have we had an opportunity to watch two guys like this operate on anything? Most of their activities are private, and we are not privy to them because we're not workers at Tesla or wherever. We don't work at SpaceX, as hard as that is. Did you see there was like a genius test. It was a math problem. And Elon Musk would put one of them up every week while he was recruiting for DOGE, asking, "Can you solve this problem?" And so people would solve it in the comments. He was like, if you can solve this problem, you could work for me at DOGE. So he only wanted geniuses to work for him at DOGE. And you have to also be well off enough or solid enough in your economics and your finances to be able to work 80 hours or 100 hours a week and not do anything else. You're just going to come work for DOGE for 18 months and then go back to your life. These are just some really, really interesting times. And for people who don't get it, maybe they'll read about it later. Maybe you, Stephen, will write a book and it'll get turned into a screenplay. And I will get to watch it in a mini-series fashion. And the others who don't get what's going on can watch it then too. But I'm soaking it up. There's a lot to learn from these two guys.
Yeah. Did you see the movie Hidden Figures?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What a great movie. You know, like the how to get somebody to the moon. And then you find out it's like all these cute little black ladies behind the scenes that were just brilliant at math.
Yeah.
And they got no credit for 50 years. These guys at DOGE, like they might not get credit for 50 years
or more.
They're just working, 20-hour days at the White House, in the federal buildings, trying to make America great again. Okay, you go by Stacy on the right. Were you ever Stacy on the left?
Yes, back in my early years. So my parents still are Democrats. And I was raised in a household where, we only vote for Democrats. My dad voted for Reagan one time, and then he later said he regretted it. And it's really because of the ostracization that goes on in the Black community that he would ever regret voting for Reagan, because Reagan was a great president. Even though as a kid back then, I knew that. But I was a Democrat, and I grew up in a very conservative household, a Christian household, but my parents were Democrats. And the old Democrat Party that they believed in and that they worked with, it doesn't exist anymore. It hasn't for a long time. But I myself had those conservative viewpoints. And when my husband and I got married, we moved to the Midwest, and he was working for a financial services firm here, and all of his friends there, great guys. He's still friends with them to this day. They were conservative. But instead of them kind of hammering him over the head or, belittling him, they just talked about things. And he didn't really talk about politics, but he would listen. Meanwhile, I'm at home listening to Bot Radio, which is Christian radio, but it's very conservative, with our new baby. And I'm thinking, why does everything they say sound like Republicans, but every scripture they quote is straight out of the Bible? And so I had a real epiphany, because I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I didn't want to say I believe in the Bible, but I vote like a person who doesn't. And we kind of had that going on at the same time, but separately, and realized it one Saturday morning. We're taking the baby out, and my husband was like, what is this on the radio in my car? And I was like, oh, it's called Bot Radio. He said, it sounds like Christian Republicans or something. I said, it kind of is. It's but it's really good. And he was like, oh. And then we were just talking, and by the end of that drive, 20 minutes, we realized we weren't Democrats anymore. And so, and I think it was one of the best transformations we've ever made, because now we live like we believe, and we believe like we live. And there's no separation between our actions and what we're trying to achieve, I should say, and what we believe in. And so I just recommend people reconcile what you're doing. If you're a person of faith, check the Bible out. It says the heart of the fool inclines to the left, the heart of the wise to the right. I don't think that's an accident.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. You were on a committee, Blacks for Trump. I think that was wildly successful. Why do you think so much of the Black community shifted over the last, let's even say 12 years, 8 years, where, I think in 2016, Trump got about 8% of the Black vote. In 2016, this time over 30%. Why do you think that shift is happening?
So let me say, first of all, that the way people live and the way they vote is often very different, like I was just talking about. And for the Black community, there's this idea that the Democrats have sown through churches. They really have maximized their use of churches. And now they don't, it's not so much in churches, it's in the mainstream culture, where you're openly mocked and vilified if you're a Republican. And what happened this last time was Blacks for Trump, actually, we did have great numbers in 2020, but it wasn't enough. And so here in 2024, you see President Trump, he still had coalitions, he still had the same thing, but he went out and did podcasts, and he was much more targeted. He still had Black influencers and all kinds of people. I did surrogacy when I could for them for 2024, but the whole attitude was different. They ran a much smaller and leaner campaign. And so the idea for Black Americans has always been, do you choose a victimhood mentality, or do you choose to just say, I'm an American? And that's always been my thing. I remember my dad telling me one time I was complaining and I was saying, maybe it's because I'm Black. And he was like, I don't ever want to hear you say that again. Whatever you're going through is not because you're Black. It's your behavior, it's your actions, or it's the other person, but it's not race-based. He said it's going to very rarely be race-based. And when it is, you're going to know it. It's going to be so obvious. And it's going to be so it's rarely going to happen to you. And I was shocked, because I thought, my dad of all people would understand if something is racial. And so that has been my mantra this whole time. My husband and I, when we look at a situation, and we have had, we're at our age, we've had racial incidents before. But they've been very minuscule. Like my dad said, they've only happened 3 times in my entire life outside of my parents' house, 3 times. So the issue for Black America has been, do we stick with our identity, or do we vote for our interests? And 2024 was a vote for your interests election, not just for Black Americans, but for Hispanics and pretty much every other American, because Biden's reign was so terrible for everyone. It was so, he hit you in your pocketbook. He hit you with your children. He hit your neighborhood with crime. He hit your job with inflation. Everywhere you look in your life, he was hitting you, and not like I would hit you. He was punching you with a Hulk punch, and you were, just barely standing up to it. And a lot of families saw their livelihoods almost on the brink of destruction during the Biden years. And so they had to really look at the issues. And I hate that it took that. But now that people's eyes have been open, you know how it is. Once you've been red pilled, you're never going back. You're never putting that tube back in the back of your head. Like the Matrix is not for you anymore. And that's how it has been for Americans. I saw a number the other day. It said something like 42% of Black men now support President Trump. These latest poll numbers are outstanding. He is polling well with Democrats for doing what he said he would do on the campaign. And so I am one of those people who, we've been this way for a long time. It's been over 20 years since we made our transition. And I've been screaming and yelling from the rooftops, hey, everybody, if you believe in what the Democrats are putting out, certainly vote for them. But if you don't feel like you have to vote for them. Vote for the person that you identify with. And seeing President Trump with a mugshot, seeing him being tried on charges that were obviously puffed up, it resonated with regular people. Regular people understand unfairness, and they were very, very upset with his treatment. And I hate to say it, but it helped. It really, I hate that he went through it. I've met President Trump a ton of times. I've been to Mar-a-Lago a ton of times, and I can tell you he's a really nice guy. And the thing about him that's different than other celebrities is, whenever I see him, I always say, I'm Stacy Washington. I was on Blacks for Trump, or, I've met you here or there. And he always says, he stops me in the middle. I remember you. Thank you so much for helping us out. We love what you did for us, and it's so good of you to be here. Or thank you for coming to my home. That is not normal celebrity behavior. I've met little regular celebrities here in St. Louis who are on channel whatever, and they're like, kind of like they can't say hi, they can't shake your hand. They're kind of like, get out of my face, peasant. Donald Trump, a multi-billionaire who's married to Melania Trump, the queen of style. He touched me on my shoulder the last time. He was like, I remember you. And I was like, I just want to take a picture. He was like, let's take the picture. And then he said, enjoy yourself. Have a good time. I hope to see you again soon. Secret Service is literally tapping their foot like, get over here. And he's making nice with me. So I have a little bit of a, he's like Granddad Trump. He's just so nice. And I really, really care about what happens to him. And it was killing me watching him have the lawfare launched against him, watching him sit in that courtroom, unable to speak on his own behalf as that woman smeared him. And I hated it for Melania, and I hated it for their family. I've met a lot of the kids too. And I got to tell you, he's so genuine and such a real person. Of course, he's a flawed man, just like I am a flawed woman. We are all flawed individuals, but he is a really great person to have working on our behalf in Washington, D.C. and around the world for international. He's going to re-implement the Trump doctrine, peace through strength. It's going to be fantastic. And so I just encourage people, if you don't like his personality, maybe he's not your cup of tea, just look at the results. Charge him the way you would any person who you're paying to do something, because when you voted for him, that was transactional. You deserve something for your vote. If you didn't vote for him, you can also critique his behavior because you're an American citizen and he heads the executive branch. and then see if he does what he said he was planning on doing and judge him on that and leave the personality to the side. Because there are plenty of people, I'm in a book club where we all love Trump. We all have our shirts and our outfits. I got these for Christmas at our Christmas party that I host at our house every year. I also got a Trump hat that has blonde hair that doesn't work for me, but I still have it. I also got this one. These are Trump bobbleheads. I already had 2 Trump bobbleheads, so now I have 4. So anyway, there are enough of us who love Trump, and we'll be like hanging out with him as much as we can and doing everything we can. So you don't have to like him. We'll like him for you, and you can just judge him on his results. That's the way I look at it.
Oh, that's great. I got this hat at the Charlie Kirk event in Phoenix, Arizona.
That's new stuff.
Yeah,
really great.
Yeah, in my life, I'd never been to anything political. I don't like politics. It's the reason I started a political channel, was to actually complain. But I'll be out in public in this, and people are pointing and talking, and I'm like, oh, maybe they watched my show. Nope, it's always the hat. They always are like, where'd you get that hat? I want to buy that hat. So
it's a great hat. Yeah, I have a bunch of Trump stuff from I was at Trump Victory during the last campaign, and one of the guys there, he must have been 12. Surely he was 18, but anyway, he was like, let me show you something cool. And he takes me over to this closet, and this is in a high-rise office building in DC, and it's Trump Victory, and I'm there doing videos and stuff, and we go over to this closet, and he unlocks it with a key and opens it up, and it's all Trump merch. And he said, pick whatever you want. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no, pick whatever you want. So I got hats and all kinds of cool stuff, Trump pins. And he didn't stop me. I got like 10 things. And I was like, are you sure this is okay? He's like, I'm in charge of the closet. You get what you want out of there. So I got that stuff. So I understand the quality Trump merch is the best. But I also recommend, if you want Trump stuff that your friends don't have, I'll tell you a secret on this huge podcast.
Okay.
Go to the website for the Trump merch, the official Trump website for the golf courses. They sell Trump mugs. I have some from there because we went to Trump Doral for an event.
Okay.
I could never afford to stay there as a regular person, but we were there for an event. And they had a gift shop downstairs. And that's how I learned that he sells things at the actual golf courses in the gift shop. And you can buy those things online and have them shipped directly to you. You can thank me later. There's stuff on there. The polos, they're Trump. This is the best stuff. They have the coffee table books if you want a unique gift for somebody for this year's Christmas. Not just clothes. They have purses. They have sweatshirts. The different kinds of Trump mugs. They have porcelain mugs, but they also have like Tiva mugs or Yeti mugs. And the Yeti mugs have the emblem of whatever golf course they're located on that mug, and they're fantastic. So it's a great place to buy gifts.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I went to what is it, like winredsecure.com or whatever the Republican one. I ordered a hat. It's been 4 weeks. I still haven't received the hat. So I'm gonna have to. I could literally fly to Doral, get a hat, and get back, but before then. But no, that's good to know, because I've been wanting to do a giveaway. I did a t-shirt, Trump t-shirt giveaway. Had 15,000 people sign up in 48 hours, and we got those shirts out. I was gonna do the hats, but then I'm like waiting.
Yeah, you can do that, and then you can look for high quality stuff on Amazon. I have some Christmas ornaments that I've ordered on Amazon. The sold out Trump hat, I have 2 of those. One in the kind of plastic, what's bigger, and then a smaller one that's made out of like a tin. Those have been sold out, but the best time to look is like right now when they start to build their inventory back up. You can find things that are Christmas themed, that are themed like 4th of July, buy early because it sells out. But because he's wildly popular. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the USAID paid media that tells you, Reuters, Politico, he's the worst person on the planet. The real deal is all of his products always sell out. That's an indication of popularity. People aren't buying it to burn it. They're buying it to wear. So yeah, I would definitely start looking now, because the best stuff is going to be available shortly.
Okay. I needed to know that for my next video. All right. I don't know if you saw this or not, but the top person California wants to be their next governor is Kamala Harris. That is shocking to me. Like, they're already trying to get rid of Gavin Newsom. They did multiple recalls. Somehow he wins. He beats Larry Elder, which was a much better candidate, in my opinion. And now they're saying, we want Kamala Harris. Like, come on, California, really?
I mean, have they learned nothing from the wildfires? So I know Karen Bass had a lot to do with that, but some of it was Gavin Newsom. So as governor, he has a lot of power to reach into municipalities. And if not through the hard power of saying, Assembly, please pass a bill prohibiting Mayor Bass from reducing the amount of money that's in her budget that goes to fire remediation. He could also use soft power. That's a visit. He gets on a private jet, drops into Karen Bass, afterwards does a press conference and says, I just met with Karen Bass and I strongly encouraged her not to reduce $69 million out of the budget for fire remediation in a county that has Santa Ana winds and wildfires. So why they would put Kamala Harris there? She's a walking suit. She can't get through an interview without being assisted. She can't answer questions directly. There's no brain power there. And people keep telling me, I've actually had people email me, you hate yourself. You're such a see you next Tuesday. Look at you. You hate yourself. You hate Black women. You're not supporting Kamala. She's got a better education than pretty much all other people. She's a lawyer. She was a prosecutor. She put criminals in jail. And I'm like, yeah, but she can't out-talk me. A part of being a leader is being able to answer questions, being able to think on your feet, being able to research things, retain that information, and then put it in a context with which a person who's asking you questions can understand that you have a full breadth of knowledge that you're operating from, and being able to do that every time someone opens their mouth in your direction. She can't do that. So she has a better education than I do, but I can actually learn, retain information, and answer. And I'm a leader. I don't care what people think about me. I would do what's right rather than be popular and get invited to cocktail parties. So you have a mansion and you're not going to invite me over. What's new? Get in the back of the line. My line of haters is long, thousands long. You'll have to be there for a while annoying me before I even recognize that you're being annoying and block you. So just go back there because I'm going to do what's right. And especially if you've had the audacity to say that you want to be in charge of people. I actually went down to our St. Louis County Council meeting and was reading scripture to the St. Louis County Council and telling them about how in the Bible, if you decide that you want to be a leader of people, you become responsible for those people. So Kamala Harris was, as vice president, responsible for the 340 million Americans, and she failed. She failed to secure the border. She was the border czar. She will be held accountable for that at the judgment seat. For people who don't believe, don't worry about it. I'm not talking to you. But if you believe in that, if you believe in the Bible, if the word of God is true, then you understand that she's going to be held accountable for that. And every person who assumes elected leadership is held responsible for the people that they were in charge of. So just like I'll be held responsible for the things that I did with our children in this household, because I assumed responsibility over them when I decided to have kids, it's the same thing for these elected people. And the people of California, I feel like they're under a delusion. They don't want to elect someone who's a business person who can actually get their budget in order and stop them from having their houses burned down every 10 years. They lost 15,000 structures. Some of them were historic. And there's a guy, I interviewed him on the show. He said that in his neighborhood, the last time the wildfires went through and burned down much of his neighborhood, there are 3 lots in his neighborhood that are for sale from back then. So they've been for sale for more than 10 years. Lots in California, you would think they would last like 5 seconds. They're not selling because you can't get insurance there. Gavin Newsom has made California uninsurable, and they want to elect Kamala Harris. I feel like they need smacking. These people need to be like grabbed and shaken and smacked and then put into like an isolation chamber and maybe even some cryotherapy. Who knows what they need? I just don't understand it.
Yeah. Well, you're an arena woman. There's a famous President Theodore Roosevelt where he says that the person that people respect is the man in the arena, the one who's actually out there trying, getting dirt kicked in their face, trying to make a difference. That's you. And unfortunately, Kamala, she wouldn't even do podcasts. She wouldn't even do softball interviews. And then, now we have this new footage because of the Trump $20 billion CBS lawsuit. Mm-hmm. One of the stories they took out was, okay, you want to be the most powerful person in the world. Why should America vote for you? And she said, because Americans are good and I believe in the American dream. And they're like, okay, but that's true. But what makes you the leader? And she couldn't answer it. So
I'm not sure what she was up to, because I'm telling you, my husband and I joke around. If I had staff, if I had 25 people who their only job was to do what I say, I would be doing, I'd have some things done. Like I'm getting much done on my own. And I do have a couple of people who work for me part-time, but I'm talking about full-time staff, like what you get when you're running a presidential campaign. You have people who, if you say, I wonder how many leaves a year fall in the sequoia forest. That person's going to go find that information for you and print it up and put it in a binder. And then every time they learn something new, they're going to put it in that binder. Do you understand the kind of information gathering capabilities you have when you have a staff of young 20-year-olds and all you have to do is tell them what you want? She didn't do it. She's either lazy or distracted or mentally vacant. I don't know what the issue is, but she could have been so prepared. And that's what I thought we were going to see. I thought she was going to throw off the mantle of, kind of word salads and come back. And especially after the debate where she had memorized all that stuff and she was pretty strong in the debate against Trump. And I thought, oh, geez, I hate this because they're going to put her out and try to act like she's so smart. And then she wouldn't do any interviews. And my husband and I literally were kind of arguing about it because he was like, she's going to come back. And I said, I feel like she's not. And he was like, I think she's going to start doing interviews. She's going to wait a few weeks and she's going to start. She never did. And a lot of people thought that, and they were surprised by her. So the worst part about her and her performance is that so many Black Americans sold her as, this is an example of Black excellence. And we were all supposed to support her just because she was so-called Black, but she was really just Indian. And I feel like there are a lot of people out there who are holding this kind of grudge against people not supporting Kamala Harris. I've seen their comments online because they think people didn't support her because she's Black, but it was because she was incompetent. It had nothing to do with her being Indian or Black or a woman and everything to do with her lack of performance. She just couldn't cut it. And Trump ran circles around her. He campaigned around her. He campaigned 24 hours, 3 days. He didn't even sleep towards the end of the campaign. The last week of the campaign, he went 3 days without sleeping. I know this because Lynn Patton came on the show and told me. So, if someone's working that hard and you're barely able to do an interview, you can't do a podcast, right? You can't be the president. He out campaigned her for like 8 more years of presidency and he only gets 4. So
yeah. Wow. Well, this has been a fun conversation. Stacy Washington, Stacy on the right. If people want to follow you, check out your show, what links can I put down below?
Oh my gosh. So find me on X. I'm on there all the time. And it's Stacy on the right, but that's on all channels. It doesn't matter what channel you're on, what thing you're on. If you type in Stacy on the right, I will come up and you can follow me. And I just got to say, you're the first interview I've had where the host wore a Trump hat the whole way through. So I'll be marking this down in my calendar. Pretty cool day for me. I get on the show sometimes where, the person's pro-Trump, but this was a totally different experience. I feel like I should have maybe worn one of my Trump hats so we could match. So maybe next time.
Well, I interviewed Drew Allen yesterday and I have this really beautiful brown hat with a leather patch of his mugshot. And I love wearing that hat out in public because I get lots of looks. So anyway, if I had one of these, I would mail it to you.
Drew's amazing. No, don't do it. My husband has kind of put me on a moratorium because I'm the shopper at our house and I have a lot of Trump stuff, but that is a great hat. That's one of the best.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you again for coming on. I know how valuable your time is. I'll put those direct links down below. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Stephen. Have a great day.